Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. Boy, you'd think some people would know when to cut their losses and run, but that is not what we are getting, boys and girls, because Rings of Power Season 2 is coming from Amazon Studios. And ladies and gentlemen, we now have our very first look at their version of Tom Bombadil. Yes, an absolutely beloved character from the Lord of the Rings series out there by J.R.R. Tolkien, the beloved author out there of all of history. And it's one of them situations where this was obviously a character that was absent from the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson movies, obviously because there was some good arguments and some good answers as to why they left him out, because it would have seemed silly when you've got this big overarching story with this giant powerful ring that everybody's afraid of, because of the fact that Tom Bombadil is so old and so powerful and been around for so long, the ring doesn't really affect him. And they thought it would kind of cut some of the, little edgy, some of the drama and some of the intensity around how dangerous the ring was and all that kind of stuff. So I understood why they left him out. I also understood why a lot of the fans were upset. A lot of them wanted to be true to the source material. And I was, as a absolute advocate for being true to the source material, I absolutely respect and understand where they are coming from, and I have no problem with their opinion whatsoever on that in any way, shape, or form. But I also understand where Peter Jackson and the rest of his team were coming from. They understood that. I absolutely love those movies. I think they're probably one of the greatest masterpieces of all time. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now getting a very first look at Tom Bombadil in live action from Amazon's Rings of Power. So we're going to check out this article from cosmicbook.news, get into all of the juicy details, see what these first looks that they've got, what my opinion on them is, and also all of the details that we've got so far about the character that they've let out and how I think this will end up going overall with the Rings of Power Season 2. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content and you like what you see, make sure you smash that like button, share with all your friends, subscribe and or follow if you are not already, depending on what platform you are on. And leave us a comment down below. How do you think Tom Bombadil looks? And do you think this will actually end up panning out well? Do you think his character will be done justice in Rings of Power Season 2? So from cosmicbook.news, Rings of Power Season 2 reveals first look at Rory Kinnear as Tom Bombadil, featured in the book but absent from the Peter Jackson movies. Now, one of the things that I saw, maybe it's just because this is a close-up, maybe it's because of his eyes, I don't know. And maybe it's just the actor himself. Maybe he has kind of some feminine features, but it definitely feels like he's got a very feminine face to a certain degree. I don't know why, even with that beard and shaggy hair, but I don't know, something about the features just seem kind of feminine. I don't know why. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if it's accidental, or maybe it's just the way the actor looks. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's the way the actor looks. Plenty of people have feminine features. There's nothing wrong with that. It happens. Amazon's Prime Video reveals first look at Rory Kinnear's mysterious characters in Rings of Power Season 2, who is revealed to be Tom Bombadil. The characters featured in Lord of the Rings book was absent from the Peter Jackson movies. Details from Tom Bombadil in the Rings of Power Season 2 include the character encounters with the Stranger and his Harfoot friends Nori and Poppy on their journey to Eastern Middle Earth. So obviously you can see a lot from the character, how he's going to be dressed, kind of frumpy, kind of thong, the big hat, the pointy hat. So halfway decent, not a bad, accurate sense. Some of this stuff kind of looks like he's going to have like a house to live in, so it sounds like he's probably going to be a major player for most of the season. Vanity Fair revealed the news along with the first look images. In our story, he has gone out of the lands of Ruin, which we learned used to be sort of endemic and green and beautiful, but now is sort of a dead wasteland. Tom has gone out there to see what's happened as he goes on his various wanderings. Payne continued. When he finally crosses paths with the Stranger, you could say he has a desire to keep that destruction that has happened there from spreading to his beloved lands in the West. He nudges the Stranger along his journey, which he knows will eventually protect the larger natural world that he cares about. So I'd say our Tom Bombadil is slightly more interventionist than you see in the books, but only by about 5 or 10%. Yeah, take that with a grain of salt. I'd imagine he's a reimagining of Tom Bombadil. And also, we obviously all know that the Stranger is supposed to be basically their knockoff version of Gandalf, because they can't use Gandalf the Grey because he's not in the appendices, which is all they have the rights to. They don't have the rights to any of the actual books or anything like that, or even the Silmarillion for that matter. And the fact that you want to do a story based in this age and not have complete and total rights to the Silmarillion was a kind of a silly, ridiculous thing to go on with. But hey, that's what they're going with, and that's what they're trying to do. And according to the audience, it's not panning out very well for them whatsoever. So I don't think this is probably going to end up panning out very well for our beloved Tom Bombadil either. Co-showrunner says he's whimsical and magical and almost verging on silly, but he also has the wisdom of the ages and the music of the spheres and deep emotional wells of ancient history and myth. His conception and function are tied to Norse myths and have deep roots in European fairy tales. So weirdly, he's kind of the most Lord of the Rings thing in Lord of the Rings. Tom is sort of a curiosity with the structure because while it's darker, Tom Bombadil is singing and saying lines that could be nursery rhymes from children's poems. So he sort of defies the tonal shift of the rest of the season and is a real point of light amidst the otherwise sea of darkness. So what are they probably going to use him for? Comic relief? That's what they're going to try to end up turning the great and legendary character of Tom Bombadil into. Look, I don't trust these guys at all. We saw the abomination that was season 1 of Rings of Power, right? We all saw how much of an abysmal failure was, losing 90% of their audience literally from episode 1 to the very final episode. Like, it was just an absolute trounce. The disrespect that they have done to the great legend and work of the J.R.R. Tolkien and his amazing universe that he has created, and to all of the fans out there that they have insulted by creating this abomination that is nothing more than a bunch of identity politics nonsense. And real dwarves have beards, boys and girls as well, which is something we've actually seen before in live action Lord of the Rings before. So that was a big issue that I had for a long time on this whole series. And then, of course, we watched the series and we've seen how bad it went. And yeah, this was just an absolute abysmal failure. So I believe they will probably end up completely and totally destroying the character of Tom Bombadil, and he will probably end up being reduced to nothing more than the walking pun and the comic relief. And what should inside of should be very serious moments. We've seen this happen inside of Disney Marvel as well, where otherwise which should be a very serious, emotional moment, ends up getting broken up by some ridiculous joke that falls flat. Nobody finds it's funny, and it just ends up damaging what should have been a very serious scene. I'd imagine we're going to see this exact same kind of use for Tom Bombadil, but who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it'll actually be good adaptation. But considering the history of these people, and that's how you end up knowing what your future holds, by studying your history, because if not, you are destined to repeat it. Ladies and gentlemen, we already know the history behind Rings of Power Season 1. We already know the history behind the guys behind the show and all of the people involved in the casting and the show running over at Amazon Prime. Whether or not they bring back Tom Bombadil, whether it actually interests any Lord of the Rings fans out there, I have no idea, but I can guarantee you this much. Season 2 of Rings of Power, that absolute abomination, will fail miserably. They will probably destroy and devastate the character of Tom Bombadil, and you know what the best part is? The majority of the Lord of the Rings fans out there will not be watching, and that is exactly what Amazon and this abomination that they call the Rings of Power absolutely deserves, because that's exactly what it is. Disrespectful to Tolkien's lore and absolutely disrespectful to the fans.